Yes, what's up everyone? So we are down on Tuesday now. I did have quite a late evening because I had a business meeting around about 11 p.m. yesterday, so had to get a few more hours sleep. But the markets are looking phenomenal at the moment. So as we can see with the DXY, I'm still anticipating this to potentially go long further. However, we do have this sort of inflection point here where we've tapped into this, and from here we can see that price is actually just stalled. What I do like about it is we have made this 1 hour mini double top here, little gap, we filled it, and it does have the potential for it to drop off. It is in line with some other US dollar pairs as well, where it can still continue in the upwards momentum, which is in my opinion more probable. However, it's possible that we can sell off a little bit further before we do gravitate back higher or kind of come back down. So understand that's a possibility, but at the moment it does seem very likely with the momentum that we have on the way to the upside that we could be moving up further. So the DXY is looking good. This throughout the whole week it's actually been phenomenal. Backing off from Friday last week, we can see that we had that gap fill, that push, and it's just been very impulsive and push. Now we just need to wait for that corrective price now to accumulate some more buys and then go, but don't be surprised if this still goes up very aggressively. Jumping onto Euro USD, which is obviously basically exactly the same as the DXY. However you want to look at it, it's basically the same thing. What I'm basically aiming for on the Euro USD pair is essentially the short position, but being aware that we can aggressively still move to this high, this low over here. So essentially we can see here we have, we've had structure, we've tapped into this point here where we can create something a little bit larger, but I believe it's more probable now at this point here, because we didn't get that hover that I was looking for. We could get a correction over here, or even push low and a correction down here to kind of give us that continuation. But don't be surprised if this becomes something larger and we get something in this region that just basically comes in like that. So I would say that that's just something you need to be aware of if you are taking a position in this area, that price can drop and come all the way back up. So be on your management game is probably my best piece of advice I can give anyone if you are going to be taking a position here. Make sure your risk management is on point. Next trade I'm looking at is the Aussie pairs. I think Aussie pairs have shaped up really well. We had the RBA interest rates last night and this morning, UK time. Well, actually early morning and a little bit further early morning. So we can see here that price did aggressively start pushing up after we had those RBA interest rates, and we basically tapped into this where we could potentially see price come to an inflection point or kind of gravitate a bit lower. I am looking in anticipation to see if price can basically make a U-turn here. So if price can essentially, maybe even come up a little bit further and then sell off, that's even great. Or if it just goes from here, that's also quite good. So right now there's more than enough, in my opinion, for it to, kind of take a message from the market. But for Aussie US dollar, it's one that I'm not going to opt into, opposed to Aussie Swiss and Aussie CAD. So Aussie Swiss, for example, we can see here that we basically had that aggressive push lower. It did kind of come down here, kind of giving us that indication that we could potentially be coming back up, but honestly, I'll be honest with you, it's probably highly probable that it's going to drop off lower and we're going to come down to the HVA. So what I'm looking at right now is we saw this zone here, and if we just go to the 1 hour, we saw that we kind of scooped up here, we tapped into this, we kind of got there, and then we pushed down and we're just correctively squeezing. This is more than enough. So there was an entry taken right here. Stop loss was just right above here. If I get tagged out, it is what it is. It's still a very good quality position. I just have to be aware that this can develop into, as we forecast, something somewhat like this, and then this could just kind of come down here and then scoot back up and then go. If that goes, I'll take another entry when appropriate, but at the moment this is more than enough, and this can just kind of drop off, and then next thing you know, we're down here somewhere before we go. So that's basically the gameplay I'm looking at for Aussie Swiss. Aussie CAD, I think Aussie CAD is also phenomenal. I think Aussie CAD is definitely one that you could definitely opt in for. I think for me, I had to pick between one. I picked already Aussie Swiss. I think Aussie CAD definitely has got potential. I just think the structure that I have on Aussie Swiss was a little bit nicer than what I had on Aussie CAD. So I opted in for that. But from the move away from this point here, which I'll just zoom out for people who haven't seen this, we can see that, you know, we kind of aggressively came up, we tapped into this and we aggressively pushed off. The only negative confluence I had was essentially we've got something like this forming, which is not really much of a negative confluence, but at the moment this isn't the sort of middle section that I'll be looking for anyway, so this kind of just got scrapped anyway, and it didn't really turn much into a negative confluence. However, there was this point which now it looks like we've come for that retest. We've kind of tapped into this, we've come up, we've retested, and if we can aggressively sell off, that would be great, which will be in line with Aussie Swiss anyway. So they're both pretty much the same. I think risk reward wise, I'm more in preference to Aussie Swiss, because the Aussie Swiss move could be a lot more aggressive than the Aussie CAD move. However, even so, they're both two great positions, and I think they both have massive potential to drive. So in terms of this is definitely an entry that I would have taken, but I opted in for Aussie Swiss. Don't want to be taking too many trades, and essentially I would hold that to go low. So, you know, we've had that scoop, so call it a cup and handle, inverse cup and handle, whatever it's called, and we had that double scoop, and we're going to push lower now. So if we get that commitment, that would be great, and then management can be something that we can work with. To first inflection point would be here, and then the second point would be pretty much over here, and then the third point, and so forth. So I'd be aware of these points here, but I wouldn't be looking to get out the market. I would just be on the ball with my management, because remember, the price target zone is the low here. So that's the way I would be looking at on Aussie CAD, and then Aussie Swiss, you know, same thing, but it's a little bit easier in terms of management, in my opinion. You know, we have a very, very nice little target till here. Hence the reason why I opted in. That's a 10% position there, and then to this low, that's about 5.8. So even if this becomes an expanding or whatever pattern this forms into, if it does, it's still not a problem, because over here we have a very, very nice position of running around about 10% there. So in my opinion, I think great trade on the table, just need to be patient and wait for that. Aussie, Euro Aussie, it's one that kind of, it is what it is, you know. I was looking for this expanding over here, so this at the time did look nice. It was shaping up early morning. I was waiting for that, but with that aggressive move here, just had to wait for us push back up. If we had a nice little push back up, I would have been able to take an entry. Unfortunately, as the candles went, we just aggressively sold off, and now we're down here. So sometimes this happens, sometimes it doesn't. That would have been a great expanding trade to take it further, but unfortunately we didn't get that. So this is the line in the sand that essentially we looked at for the buy. We've kind of come back down into it. So at this moment in time, I'm just going to be a little bit more patient, and I'm just going to wait and see, you know, what price does and how it develops, because it might just come all the way back down here, and then we might even be able to get into the long again. So that's something I think I'll be extra patient with now. GBP CAD, I think, is shaping up very well today. That's one that I think just needs a little bit of time. It's going to tap into this override point over here, which let me just put another alert on here. There we go. So basically, when it taps into this, we're going to break below, and then as we've broken below, I'll wait for that push up, and then that aggressive buy could be in line with the other GBP pairs as well. So as we're seeing with GBP Aussie as well, we're seeing it kind of come down aggressively to this low, and I'll just jump onto the daily and go back to GBP CAD in a second. We can see that we have this low over here. We've tapped into it once. Looks like we might be coming in, create a double bottom and then go, which will be phenomenal. Also, we can see on GBP CAD, we're tapping into this low, which could be pricing us really well to be going up here. You know, further targets, you know, there's 114% there if you can get in an AFT position. Even over here, phenomenal position. GBP US dollar, obviously in line with the US dollar pairs. I don't think that I would be entertaining this trade right now. I think, you know, the GBP pairs slightly volatile, needs a bit more structure, would kind of opt out for it. GBP yen, it's a mistrade for me, unfortunately. I did watch it kind of go. I was just kind of not too sure about it. That was the thing. So we had this inflection point over here that wasn't really much for me to go off by, but I was seeing this as, if this is a larger flag here, then we could be seeing a larger middle section in this region. But as it aggressively sold off, I wasn't looking at it to go that far. Even though we had the gap, we filled the gap now, so this could be the flag that we're looking for, and this can now correct to make its way back up. Same thing with USD yen. USD yen was the one that I was more in favorable to opt for, but now looking at it, it didn't really move much. So this was the trade here on USD yen that I kind of just thought, you know, that's not a bad trade there. We've tapped into that high, push down, create a flag, and then even with GBP yen, the reason why I didn't want to is just it wasn't there wasn't really much for me to go by, so I kind of just opted in to just leave that. But then looking at it now, GY was definitely the one that just kind of flew, and then GBP yen was the one that flew, USD yen was the one that kind of just staggered. But even so, we're still filling that gap. Risk reward wise, this was phenomenal. I think there was around about 10% on the table there when I did actually just weigh it up. So yeah, if we just squeezed in around about, you know, call it around about 13 pips, 14 pips. Yep, there we go. So yeah, roughly around about 10% to fill the gap, which is phenomenal. So yeah, so that was basically the trade there in itself. But I think at this moment in time, not really bothered. More than happy to leave it. I've basically got these ones on watch now. So I've got Aussie Swiss, which is basically the main focus at the moment, to just see if it plays out. Obviously it's very corrective here. This can just correct and pull its way back up. So most probably this will be at break even, which I'll change in a minute. But yeah, so it is what it is. If it takes me out for break even, you know, it is what it is. But if it can commit and just go, then that's phenomenal, and that's what I'm basically looking for. So that's basically my watch for today. We'll see how it goes, and perhaps maybe I might catch a good trade later. GBP CAD definitely is one that I think is going to shape up nicely. Just need some time to develop, and then Aussie CAD as well. We'll have to wait and see if these corrections are just a bigger move to go higher, and then perhaps maybe even meet with this point, or if it's actually just going to commit and go. So we'll have to wait and see, but really excited about this week. I think, you know, especially with Aussie pairs, there's going to be some very nice price movement. So have a good week, guys, and I will catch